Welcome to this week's Harness Racing Alumni Show. I'm Freddie Hudson, and I'm here today with Trade Martin and Bob Marks. This week's Harness Racing Alumni Show is brought to you by the Meadowlands Racetrack. Visit playmeadowlands.com. And Hunterton Farm, home of champions year after year. Visit huntertonfarm.com.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show with your hosts, Freddie Hudson and Trade Martin.
Captain Quarters is now standing his first stud season at Winbak Farms, Canada. In 2023, he was Canada's fastest 2-year-old pacer. He won the $1 million Metro Pace with his outstanding breeding. He is one of Canada's hottest new studs. Joining us today is his owner, Rich Stiles, and the man who broke him, who is going to be our guest host today, Greg Peck. Greg, over to you.
Thank you very much, Freddie, and I'm glad that Rich is here as well, because this is kind of what happened. I get a call on a Saturday based on a referral for Freddie. This gentleman is interested in buying a good yearling at the sale in Kentucky. So he sent me 3 pedigrees, but one, I mean, it just kicked you right in the jaw with a great with a road horseshoe, as they'd say. His pedigree was there, but the big thing that's happened with Captain's Quarters now is you have the 2-year-old performance where he won the Metro Pace for $980,000, and the following year, what a lot of people don't and didn't know, and probably we didn't say a whole lot about it, is he went out, he won his North American Cup of Limb. He was second in the final. Then before he went to New Jersey, he got caught in the stall. And you could argue, it's either that or a coincidence, he was never the same again. He did win a heat of the Little Brown Jug, but he just wasn't the same Captain's Quarters. But ironically, with the Burke horse this year, that happened, and it ended that horse's career. He was such a great horse, but accidents do happen. So you'd have to say that he was never the same after that. But now, as I say, you have pedigree there, which Rich will talk about. You have the performance, which Freddie and I have talked about, and you have the price. He stands for $5,000 Canadian, which is about $3,700 US. And much to my not surprise, there was one sold breeding to him on Preferred Equine Online. It sold for $4,250 US without a breed back, no live foal. So it's probably you're getting around $6,000 there really, where he stands at Winbak for $5,000 Canadian, which in today's market, when to come up with horses like these, and with the prices of the yearlings, if you can get something that's around $3,700 US for Captain's Quarters, the only son of the great Captaintreacherous in Ontario, the 2-year-old speed, the pedigree, as they say, and the fact that he performed on the track. He had the chutzpah, there's no doubt about it. People really knew that horse. And even the announcer, I can remember one night, the Velvet Fog, Frank Saliva announced it. The way he said about Jody, how he had to grab into him, and he did. And the other thing is this, I think you keep in mind. I had him up until the spring when he was ready to go to Ontario, which wouldn't be for me. And Herb Holland and Carolyn McIsaac really did a good job, and they would be conservative. They did everything right by the horse. So that's the other thing. The horse immediately, which I wasn't surprised, had a great counts for his semen, and he ships well. Because from Jim Averett to Steve Stewart to me to Rich buying him, to Carolyn and Herb taking over on him, you'd have to say that, he has it all at this point. I mean, it's speculative, but it's not a huge speculation when he has, he checks all the boxes. So, Rich, what made you look at that pedigree and tell us about it?
Okay, Greg, let me ask you, do we have an hour and a half to talk on this? Because I know we were talking.
Oh, I know. Either that or I was going to say you have to be blind not to see that pedigree. But anyway.
Because we like to talk on the phone, and we've been on the phone with Billy O'Donnell talking for hours already, and we were all having a good hoot telling old horse stories. So I don't know if we're going to be sitting here for an hour and a half or 2 hours, but I'm going to, once you get me started, it's like, I can't stop. It's like, once they get that bucking bronco into the ring, he's not stopping that quickly. So, in any case, I remember, I've had horses before. I had my best horse was actually Billy O'Donnell drove the horse. I bought him down in Lexington as a yearling, Brett Hanover colt, a beautiful chestnut horse. And this was 1981, and he was a nice horse. I went down there, looked at him. I just had a feeling about the horse, and I loved Brett Hanover. Was the sire of my first horse in 1975, and I don't know if any of you remember Vinny or Gemma from Roosevelt and Yonkers, who went on to become maybe one of the most formidable stables in the Northeast, bar none.
I'll jump in there. Doc Fellas.
Are you kidding me? He had a who's who of horses that were in
by
New
night.
York.
We can go on for a while here now.
Don't forget Division Street, who beat On the Road Again at Free State. On the Road Again with Buddy Gilmore was basically a top horse. And
but with respect, I'm going to say this, Rich. Captain's Quarters could follow down and get up and beat most of them. He was that fast.
Well, I think
Jody
James, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. That's fine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jody Jamieson, when you mentioned that Captain's Quarters would follow, Jody Jamieson told everyone he was going to win the Metro before the Metro. And after the elimination, which saw the horse, he came home. I think it was his fourth lifetime start, and he was just flying like Pegasus. I think they got the last quarter in 25-1. It was absurd. It was absurd, and basically that made him the favorite in the Metro. You had one horse standing in his way by the name of Legendary Hanover, and I'm a big Legendary Hanover fan. I'm a big 2-year-old fan of all the good horses. I like to beat them, but sometimes it doesn't always work that way. But as a 2-year-old, basically, when the money was down, I played tennis my whole life in tournaments, been very competitive. Unfortunately, I didn't make any money from it. It cost me a lot of money to play, but unfortunately, that's the way it goes. But Wimbledon for a tennis player, or the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadow, or the French Open. That's when the money goes down. Now we separate the cream from the crop, the top players in the world. And nobody remembers if you got to the quarterfinal or the semifinal. And very few people even remember the player that doesn't win Wimbledon. It's concentrated on the winner. When the money is down, when the heat comes, this is the Sonny Liston against Cassius Clay fight. The money is down. The world is watching.
But he has, about the money being down, there's several on that page, and if you tell the audience who's on his immediate pedigree page, really.
I don't think.
Starting with the mare, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
the mare won in 115 apiece.
Yeah.
At around Thanksgiving.
A few, real sharp people in the business, and there was one of them I'll mention later, but they were saying to me that this is genetically for breeders. And I went out and bought 2 mares myself, fast 2-year-old mares down in Harrisburg. One of them finished third, a fast-closing third in the Champlain to pass line, and she's in foal, actually. I bought her in foal. She's in foal to I believe it's Confederate. So that was kind of a weird thing. I wasn't really looking for another horse, but she was in foal already. So I'm breeding her back to Captain's Quarters, as well as Blessed Hanover. That was also a fast 2-year-old. I think she took a mark 51-2 on a 5/8 mile. So they don't give out that for a 2-year-old.
And you bought her yearling with Herb in London as well, correct?
Oh, no, that was Cape Cod Hanover. That was Cape Cod Hanover's first foal. That was a different horse there. That's the one they have. But anyway, so the money's down. The Metro is basically, arguably, the greatest achievement for a 2-year-old pacer in Canada or in North America, for that matter. And it's way more important than a race like the Breeders' Crown because, very simple, if you win the Breeders' Crown, which is an incredible accomplishment, I'm not taking anything away, I'm just giving you the comparison between the Metro and the Breeders' Crown. If you don't win any other races, but you win the Breeders' Crown, there are no more races that are, big races for the rest of the year. So basically you've done what you're going to do. But if you win the Metro at Mohawk for, basically we're talking $1 million purse, which is, that's good money for a horse race. And if you can win that race, now your future going into the Breeders' Crown later in the season could give you, really a royal flush in spades if you were to, go into that. And I remember Jim Averett, after Captain's Quarters won the Metro and the flasher light, the timer lit up at 49-3, which everybody looked at. And I remember I had a few calls and everybody was telling me, I knew he was going to come up with a big mile because, you could just see. And here's a horse that I remember saying to you, before, you were jogging him in the cornfields and it was
on the canal,
roadways, on the canal and the road. And it turned out people thought you were crazy, including myself. But then as you did research,
Me too, I think.
That's the way they train horses in Europe. But the people in America are pretty much, watching watching American racing.
Yeah.
They're not really following that much, and they, a lot of them don't really see the training of the horse. I mean, some do. I'm sure they jog them in the woods and by the the water. Sometimes I know in Sweden, I think they even take them into the water for gallops.
My brother called it, Rich, and he was never in the horse business. He said, what you're doing is CrossFit training them, and that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So it was very interesting how you did it. And I remember one time you told me that you went in for coffee every morning, and you hitched the horse to a post like in the old westerns. And I'm thinking,
great manners.
How could this possibly be that he could leave a horse there while he's going in for coffee? And there's this horse that we paid arguably a lot of money for, and this horse is hanging out like what was the Lone Ranger's horse? What the hell? That was the name of that horse.
Trigger.
Yeah, we had Trigger sitting out waiting for Greg to come back with his coffee. So that's a story in itself.
Well, he was very athletic. I mean, from day one, I remember saying I broke him in the field, and I should say starter. Break for those who, it's not a great term. We should use the Monty Roberts term when he talks about getting babies started. I can remember he literally paced through a flock of geese. So I said to Steve and Sidney Stewart, well, he's already been in company, but 20 geese there, and he just paced right through them. So he had he just had it going, and he just looked again, and it's getting to the time of the year. There's still some mares left, and the more I look at it, I see the one that sold for $4,250 on gate. You're getting up $5,800, almost $6,000, and no guarantee. So I would say for those out there who even thinking about it, Captain's Quarters is the way to go. Here's the other thing. What he might be is, it took Muscle Hill, who By the way, and that was a funny one when I said to Pat Woods at Winbak about that breeding Muscle Hill, he reminded me, tongue-in-cheek, about Bettor's Delight as well, that it seems that the first great son is sometimes a little smaller than the father. Muscle Hill will be smaller than Muscle Yankee. Albatross, they say, was smaller than Meadow Skipper. And once Muscle Hill hit, then a lot of his sons started to get good. And so we're still waiting for the first great Captaintreacherous, and now we have a chance to breed to him. And, my friend Chris Coyle, who is, as I say, hotelier to the stars, says if you want to win a Grade 1, Sweet Lou is great, but Captain T seems to really, be the one that you have to breed Grade 1s. And again, we could say that now. Certainly Sweet Lou has come along as doing the same thing. So the time is right, the performance was right, and the price is right, as Bob Barker used to say.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating story with you and Captain's Quarters, because I remember you told me it had to be 2 months in to when you started jogging him in the cornfields and on the Delaware towpath, I think it was called, right?
Yeah.
And the racers were always giving you a hard time that you're not supposed to have horses on there, but actually, if you read the laws and the rules, they did allow horses on there.
Absolutely. So the horses and the mules built the canal in the early 1800s, and you know what?
Yeah, horses. Without the horses, we wouldn't be here in our society at all.
And the canal, obviously, it was not built for the automobile because it wasn't around then. It was built for horses. Period.
Yeah. But in any
Rich,
case,
I want to ask you about this.
Go ahead.
What made you're in a business, it's interesting, where, you might buy a coin for 17 cents, or you might buy one for 17,000 or 170,000, right? It's that kind of a business.
Yep, sure.
Captain's Quarters.
Well, that's a hobby.
Really wanted them, and you kept bidding. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate to because, they say if you find something you like, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I have two or three things that I feel that way about. And I got into coin collecting when I was living in Queens, when I was maybe 9, and a friend, a little Irish Catholic kid next to me that lived on the same floor. I've lived in a big apartment building. My mother's parents were teachers. He shows me a nickel, and I say, "Come on, we got to get to the baseball game." And he shows me this nickel from the book, and I said, "Come on, we're wasting time." He says, "Yeah, but you see this nickel?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, this nickel my grandmother gave me last week for Christmas, and it's worth $1." Well, did you ever see like Daffy Duck with the eyes going around? They have the eyes going around, and it lands on the dollar sign. That's what happened. So I got into the coins, but also when I was about 15 or so, I started hanging around the racetrack. Now, Vinny or Gemma, getting back to Vinny, who had the big power stable, Sam Shoe Bluegrass, incredible mares. It was absolutely incredible. And Timo Nick was just these were killer mares, killer, the best in the world. And he had a whole stable of them, backed by a lot of it was horses that Danny Kramer owned. Danny was a big player, tremendous gonads. He would take a shot, and he hit at some real good ones, Doc's Fella and Division Street, and he had a lot of good horses. And he even bought a horse for me, Sugar Valley Abbey. That was Hervé Fillion's horse that Vinny Gemma claimed. That was his third horse. His first horse, that when he came down to New York, was a horse that I bought with him in Joy for like $7,000 at the Liberty Bell sale. It was a 6-year-old bred Hanover. That turned out to be Les Tired, who started winning a Monticello, and that was Vinny's first horse to come to New York. I had to lend him some money because he had to move from Rock Hill to Long Island, and it was expensive to move, and he had to get a house. So I said, "Look, don't worry. we'll get a second horse or a third horse. So I put an ad in the New York Times once he came down there, and we got a second the first start with less tired and an 18-claimer. So I told Vinny, look, I'll put an ad in the paper about, we have a horse at Yonkers, and this good trainer, young trainer, who worked for Jimmy Cruz, among others, and his wife Joy, which they were very good horses. They were very good horsemen, and they could fine-tooth comb a horse. And he improved all the horses. And I remember putting an ad in the New York Times for horse owners wanted, and there was only one answer. It was a group of people led by 2 detectives, police guys, from the Passaic Police Department. And I remember when they came into my apartment, they were pretty suspicious of the whole thing, that they had never been around, they went to the track, but they didn't know what was going on. It was like a big mystery going on behind. And I remember when they came in, I yelled, the doors open. They both had their hands on their firearms. And I'm thinking, like, what the hell is happening, And it turned out these guys were wound up buying a second horse for Vinny. It was 2 bus driving brothers that owned the bus company for kids in New Jersey, and the 2 detectives from Passaic. And one guy was Fred, and the other guy was Sam. And they were hilarious. I mean, this was like the Keystone Cops. It was absolutely incredible. I remember he told me one time he wrecked a car. He wrecks like 1 car a month in high-speed chases in Passaic in the area. I mean, this it's like, the old story. What did the little Judy Garland say? Tinto, we're not in Kansas anymore, or whatever, so that's what happened. Toto, yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Which brings up Captain's Quarters, by the way.
Yeah, we forgot about him.
That.
Well, you don't really.
He's not in Kansas either. He's in Ontario. He's at a great farm.
Stevie Wonder could see that, don't take my word for it. Who was that writer? Very famous. I think he worked for Hanover right before the balloting. Murray Brown, right?
Yeah.
And I remember he wrote, he had to pick a top United States horse that would get the Dan Patch Award. So, based on, I don't know if they based it on a number of races or whatever. And he said he has to pick Captain Albano because, it's just basically where all the people are going to go to. But then he made an asterisk and he says, actually, the horse that I feel is the fastest and possibly the best was another Captaintreacherous colt, Captain's Quarters. So it wasn't any big surprise that this horse was now sort of, the top 2-year-old in North America, as far as many would feel, based on the big money win. Jim Averett wanted me to go to the Breeders' Crown, but I figured it this way. I was looking, I guess I'm looking at very high elevated horses, but some beach somewhere, I think he had 6 starts for his 2-year-old season. And then I think he had maybe 20 or so, and I thought that was perfect. I didn't want to go 8 or 9 starts or 10 starts, even though, you could. That was fine. But I just wanted to give this horse a chance to win the North America Cup because I remember, Greg, I think maybe you don't remember, but I remember you said, well, what do you want to do with those? I said, well, I have them eligible to the Metro and the North America Cup. Those are the 2 biggest races in harness racing, bar none. I mean, the Little Brown Jug, okay, yeah, we could definitely put that in, but other than that, the list kind of goes down. I mean, the Metro is the, Canada's, certainly Canada's,
right.
Just Kentucky Derby, even though that's 3-year-olds.
Captain got basically 75% of it, really, to look at it that way. He first in one and second in the other, and he won elimination of the...
Right. Well, what I was trying to do after the 5 starts, I figured, okay, look, he's perfectly sound, and Jim Averett was saying you got to go to the Breeders' Crown because you're probably going to be an odds-on favorite to win the final. Hopefully, you have to still qualify. So nothing is for certain. The only problem is we would have to have a tune-up race prior to the elimination. So that makes it already, if you get to the final, 3 races, and that would have pushed him to 8 starts for the season. And I just said, well, you know something? I remember saying to Jody Jamieson, I said, I'm going to stop with him because everybody was telling me to keep going. I'm going to stop with him, and I want to make this horse, Captain Albano, come to our turf, not me go to his, That was my game plan.
In other words, that he'd have to come to you in the North American Cup the following year.
Exactly. And I remember telling Jody that, and right. I remember he said, it might be a really good idea because he felt that as far as his driving experiences, and he drove Bulldog Hanover, and that you saw what that horse went on to do. And he said that Captain's Quarters was maybe the fastest one out of the 2. And he said to me,
certainly, he said, I keep hitting it, the pedigree, because Bulldog Hanover is a great sire.
Oh, he's tremendous.
Excited about it, but he's out of an older man. I can remember.
Yeah,
I remember racing against B.J. Squall. So Jack Darling, kudos to him but he's always been good at that, about picking out the yearlings. But if I could just hit a couple more things that if anybody has any questions, they can call Pat Woods, at Winbak. And I'm going to say it again. Look at Winbak's yearlings and look at their production. That, they really do a good job. There's no doubt about it. So you're going again, to a very professional. You're going, in my estimation, to the best place in Canada because Joe and Joanne Thompson, they've been at this a long time, and they've been very successful. As I said, can you imagine? They bred Muscle Hill, and they bred Bettor's Delight. That is quite a thing that they ended up with.
That's insane.
So,
that's insane.
And they can call me. They can call Rich. If you have multiple mares, we can give you a discount. We really want to get you in on this first stop.
They know all about that. Let's talk about this horse a little. The family. I mean, when you look at the immediate family, and you see not only the mother who won the 3 Diamonds at Meadowlands in a driving rainstorm. If you check the video out, it was insane. It was total. Blizzard, like with rain, like a rain blizzard. And she won in 50 and 4, I remember, as a 2-year-old. And that was Captain's Quarters' mother, an art maiden.
And that was in Thanksgiving, how late it was.
Yeah, late in the season. Terrible weather. So she had a lot of heart. And then you get into horses in the family. Down by the
Seaside is the great one. He's terrific.
Who's a great horse.
And a great sign.
Tall Dark Stranger, an incredible racehorse, has yet to maybe improve a bit in the stallion ranks.
You know what, Rich? I talked to
Was he a Bettor's Delight? Was he a Bettor's Delight?
Yeah, but they say he's getting better. So I hear different guys saying that because I've seen that with stallions. Sometimes the old timers you say it takes 5 years to make one, not just the first and second crop. So we'll see.
Yeah. But he was a tremendous horse. And then you had the Sports Rider, who was certainly a name horse. I don't know if he was, a top sire, but he was a big name horse, and he won over $1 million, maybe closer to 2. This past season, you had a horse named Swingtown, who made over $1 million in the family. And you have also Which Way to the Beach. So it's like those horses I mentioned, they've made over $10 million in the immediate family. This horse is a genetic. If you give him a good mare, give him a 2-year-old record mare that had some speed, and you give this horse a shot, you could come up with lightning in a bottle. I mean, I'm taking my chances on 2, and I'm really excited about the year. You know, if I can get these 2 healthy, and I would love to get these horse to the race and see what the product of a captain's quarters that was basically in the final. Jody Jamieson said that I've got the best horse. No, he doesn't think the horse is going to lose. It's just a trip. He didn't, you don't know what kind of a trip you're going to get. I mean, it's
Rich, Freddie here. I'm going to interrupt you. Weren't you offered $1 million before the Metro elimination?
Well, Herb Holland sends me a text one day, and it says this is right after the elimination for the Metro, and Herb sends me a text. Do you want $1 million for the horse? So I'm thinking he's kidding, and I send the text back. I said you have a sense of humor. He said no. He said there was a gentleman from New Jersey who offered, and the trainer they want to buy the horse for $1 million, and it didn't take me a few seconds to make a decision. I wasn't interested in selling the horse. I mean, I didn't buy a horse like this after being in the horse business for half a century. Luckily, I didn't need the money. I didn't know any guys' money that they were going to break my knees. So I said to myself, "The hell with it! I'm rolling the dice here. That's what I'm for. This is a gambling business." I remember Carmine Abatello. He was a great guy who just passed away. I think, didn't he? A couple of months or two ago. Carmine, he was the best. He was the best. And I remember he was at the crowd. They had a Talk to the Stars night at Yonkers, and Carmine was there. And the first guy, these rash New Yorkers, they're saying all crazy things, and Carmine was really cool. And they said, "So, Carmine, do you bet?" So he looked at him. He said, "Hey, it's a gambling business, and it is. The yearling sales. I mean, let's face it, it's a gamble. Everything is speculative." But you try to put yourself mathematically in a position where you at least have a chance to come up with something that might surprise you. And I think this stallion here is ready to rock and roll here. And what was Greg, the theory by Federico Tessio? He was a great Italian thoroughbred.
Well,
what was the theory?
Yeah,
one of his theories.
For those who are interested in breeding, look up the theories of Tessio. It was centuries ago, but he came up with a lot of theories that, such as he thought that the stallion should be vibrant when he goes to the stallion shed. It should be fresh, and it seems that they make better stallions. Now, I know we'll get arguments on that especially there's a lot of guys in the business will tell you, if you stood them in Sydney Mines, where I'm from, on the corner somewhere, and they bred a couple of mares, they'd make it as a stallion. I don't agree with that. I think if you try and cover whatever base you could, that was done. So Captain's Quarters was basically, when he went, he just was not, after he got hurt, but he was as fresh as a daisy outside of that. So, if that also says that.
Well, wait a second. But remember, you're talking about a horse that wasn't even 100%, and we knew that. Yeah. He led. Think about this. He led in the jug out of the 2 miles. Yeah, he led the jug out of the 2 miles that you race. He went wire to wire in the elimination with wasn't it Legendary Hanover trying to chase him down that couldn't, and he wound up winning that race from the rail. And then he drew the rail again with Jody Jamieson. And Captain Albano, that was his day, Captain Albano. And we cut the mile for him. He took the top, and that was the race. And I think Captain Albano won in a real fast time. I mean, real fast horse. I don't know how he got so fast, but he's fast. In any case, so that was that, and you had a lot of good that crop that Captain's Quarters raced in as a 2-year-old. A lot of people were telling me they thought that was one of the deepest crops in 20 years. I mean, you had horses, there was like one after another of these, rock'em sock'em horses.
Nijinsky, Legendary Hanover, Jim Quality. I mean, just a bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah, you had. I made a list somewhere, and now, of course. Here we go. So, for the colts from that crop, you had some of the early starters like Mirage Hanover, or
right.
then Clever Cody was in there. He was the Ohio champion, Doc Moore. Chain Gang was a really nice-looking horse. If you look at him for the Metro, I mean, a jet black, he really looked like a prize fighter. And you had Legendary Hanover, who was, he was undefeated. He was 6 for 6. And I remember watching the COSA show, Mohawk Millions Night. I remember they were alluding him to potentially some beach somewhere status, but they said we still got a long way to go. So when Captain's Quarters came along from the 7th post, took the top at the Jody quarter moved, took the top, opened up a few lengths, and basically threw a 27-second third quarter in, and that knocked the cover dead. And he basically ran them off their feet. I mean, if you watch the video, that's what he did. Nobody could catch up with him. They tried, but nobody was gaining past the wire. So he won fair and square, basically on the front end. This was no second over trip or 2-hole trip, This was, you get on the front end in 55 going for $1 million. Nobody's giving you any breaks. They're going all out. They're going to take their pot shots at you, wait for the stretch, and the whole field is going to try to pass you. And they couldn't get close. So he was the best 2-year-old. This basically we know, and that's what you're shooting for. We don't need 5, 6, 7-year-olds that are going to make money, because by then you're broke. You want to get a horse that, as a 2-year-old, or at the worst, early 3-year-old, can really get into those stake races and have a shot at knocking the other horses, off the track, because that's what you got to do. It's mano a mano when you get to the big money races. I'm talking $1 million races. Not the sire stakes are great. I mean, I love sire stakes, but we're not talking about, grassroots and, gold. We're talking about the grade 1, right, Greg? You call it a grade 1 race.
Yeah.
And those are the races.
Well, they now grade them like thoroughbreds.
Yeah, in the thoroughbred. But, we thought they should have graded them for,
No, but they are grading them now, like I said,
Yeah, so that's good. It's a step forward. But in any case, that's where you want to see the top echelon of tennis players, thoroughbreds, or, harness horses. Where's the big money? Where's the big race? The signature races, the grade 1s. And if you look at the Metro, the North America Cup, and the Jug Final, guess what horse was in front at the 3/4 pole or better in all 3 finals? It wasn't Captain's Quarters. He actually led in every final. So he must have had some speed if you can lead in 3 of the biggest, basically $1 million races, and you're beating all the other horses. Okay, won one of them, the Metro, got beat deep stretch in the North America Cup. That was a heartbreaker, but, Nijinsky came along as a 3-year-old, and he was really sharp. I mean, that horse did super as a 3-year-old. At 2, we beat him. He was a good horse, but, not the same level as captain's quarters, and then at 3 he excelled. That was his big year. Another Bettor's Delight, right? Bettor's Delight horse, like was it Tall Dark Stranger? So the Bettor's Delight stallions, you tell me, Greg, they haven't really produced much from what you've
they haven't. Again, that's not, first of all, I'm not buying them, and I'm not on the pacing side as much, so I wouldn't say that. I just go by what the market wants to tell you. But at the same time, he's probably, listen, he's still going. He's retired, but they're still on the ground, so I don't know. I mean, he is, you'd have to say, they talk about, most happy fellows a little bit, but Bettor's Delight has been, he's been around for how many years?
It's unbelievable.
So the only thing he has left to do is to come up with a great sire, and then maybe he'll do that.
Right, and I'm sure possible. In time he will. But then
you can breed them to the captain's quarters too. Anything of the Bettor's Delight line, you can breed to captain's quarters.
So we should be rooting for him all the way.
You're going to take the speed. The captain's quarters at 2 and 3, and put the toughness of the Bettor's Delights in there.
Yeah. It could, who knows? Yeah, we'll find out. You never know what's going to happen in the future. Trying to predict the future is not an exact science, as they say. And an interesting point was that I'm sure we've mentioned it at some point, but in the 2 biggest races, the three big races, the Metro, North America Cup, and Jug, and it'll be the last time I say it, Captain's Quarter raced 6 times, twice in the Elim, because he got to the final in every race, and the final itself. So it was 6 starts. He went in 3 of the arguably the biggest races in harness racing, the Metro, the North America Cup, and the Jug. Yeah. His final tally for the 6 starts was 3 wins in 2 seconds. So not too shabby, and it was the best cumulative record by any horse in standardbred racing as far as the pacing side.
I'm going to add this in there. His best time was 1:47, correct?
Right. So when he was not 100%, and I'll tell you what happened. He wound up kicking a fence when he was after he won after he was second in the North America Cup going into the Meadowlands. That week, I got a call from Herb, and he said, "You won't believe it. He had his foot. He kicked the gate, and he got it was one of those rails like a jail, and he wound up getting his back hoof stuck in the bars. So anyway, Herb luckily had a high, what the hell did he have, a bolt cutter, like industrial strength bolt cutter, or at best the police would have been, the fire department would have been there, because the horse was standing there, in between these, the gate fell down, and he's got his, leg in the, the hoof in the, between the 2 bars, which luckily he didn't start thrashing, or we would have been in big trouble. Yeah. So anyway, the Meadowlands Pace was coming up in the following week. I think that happened on a Saturday. The Meadowlands Pace elimination was the following Saturday, and now I'm thinking, okay, that's it. Scratch him. That's it for that, because I haven't had the greatest luck at the Meadowlands over the years. My other 2-year-old almost got killed in a race that was on TV in New York in the elimination for the Woodrow Wilson. With it wasn't the race; it was actually horses that didn't get into the final, so they made it a consolation race. And John Campbell drove the horse, and the horse by the name of Mr. Dalray wound up cutting him off mid-stretch, and he somersaulted down the stretch, and John Campbell got catapulted. I'm sure if you ask John, he'll remember that race. And the horse slid basically you're supposed to pace through the finish line. He was sliding in an attempt to hit the finish line. So not too many horses slide into the finish. But anyway, then I had a second horse that was a mare that Cat Manzi drove, collectible, and she was in the Comforter Series, finished a good second, and then it wound up she had a hairline fracture in her cannon bone, so I stopped with her. And so that was that for that. So this was number 3. Going into the Meadowlands pace elimination, he gets stuck in a gate, and, you know, in retrospect, if I had to do over, I would have scratched him and not even thought about it twice, because even though he was good, Doc Hennessy watched him jog and he traded him. He was fine, but the only problem is, Herb being cautious, as would be the right thing to do, told Jody in the elimination, take it easy. He didn't have a good week, and just don't get him first over, or don't take the top, which he probably could have done if he wanted. So he raced him very conservatively, sat 4th, and he closed a little at the end, but he wasn't really trying to win or finish second because of this issue that Herb mentioned. He had a bad week, got his foot caught. So Herb was a little, Jody was a little on guard when the trainer tells you that, don't things didn't work out this week. Better take it easy. So that's what Jody did, and we wound up 4th, and they gave him the last quarter in 24-4. That was his last time on the program. He paced the last quarter in 24-4, closing a little, but I don't think Jody was really urging him much. So they went pretty fast, and unfortunately in the final, because of the 4th place finish, he draws the 9-hole. And I remember you, Greg, telling me, well, that's that, right? We were pretty much up against it from the 9. Tough field. And we raced good. He was flying at the end, but he was just so far back. And then he got Captain Albano crashed into him at the start, and they were like dead last. And that was a race that legendary Hanover won in 46 and a piece. And that was a horse that we beat. So multiple times. As a matter of fact, when you take the top 2 Canadian horses, top Canadian horse and the top U.S. horse at 2, well, they raced against Captain's Quarters in the Metro and the North America Cup, both of them. They had a total of 4 starts against Captain's Quarters, but they went 0 for 4 against Captain's Quarters. 2 horses that were the top in Canada and the top in the U.S.
Okay, with that, 4 in a row. With that, I'm going to close the show out. Okay. And we have an exciting year, a couple of years coming up with how these foals are going to come out, and it's going to be real exciting. And Captain's Quarters is the real deal. He's standing at Winbak Farms. And if you have a mare that you're looking to breed to, I strongly suggest that you go to Captain's Quarters.
Yeah, and and in closing, my wife is into pediatric genetics, and she studies DNA. That's all she does is study DNA for a living. And she's been around my horse ventures for 40 years or so, and she's fascinated by the DNA here. It almost seems like she looks at the critical eyes of a geneticist. She looks at the genetic blueprint or through more of a spectrum that we just look at as a horse with speed. And I think this horse's DNA and family will transfer to good brood mares. And not only do I think that Captain's Quarters has an incredible chance of coming up with some knockout 2-year-olds, But I think he's going to be a great broodmare sire. Because the traits that he had in the family, we've got a lot of good mares. On the female side, Precocious Beauty and Prescient Beauty, among others, two tremendous horses. So he's got a really good maternal line there. And don't forget this, he's got Nitrous on both sides of his lineage there. The double dose of Nitrous, who, I don't know if you remember him, but I was at the Meadowlands when he won. That was an incredible horse, absolutely incredible. He was the Willie Mays or the Jimmy Connors of the 3-year-old ranks. He was a killer. But it's funny. I remember, and in closing, one more line. But I remember, Greg, you told me 2 months into his training, you told Billy O'Donnell, you said this horse is a killer. I remember you told him that 2 months into the training, and I'm thinking this guy must be nuts, So, in any case, if you have a good mare and you've got some, 2-year-old speed, this is your horse, and good luck. I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and let's see what you come up with. I think you'll have a good shot at getting a real good one.
All righty, Rich. We're going to do this again. And, Greg, I want to thank you for guest hosting. And to our audience, that's a wrap for this week's show, and thanks for joining us. This week's Harness Racing Alumni Show is brought to you by the Meadowlands Racetrack. Visit playmeadowlands.com. And Hunterton Farm, home of champions year after year. Visit huntertonfarm.com. That's a wrap for this week's show. Thanks for listening, and please join us again next week.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show